Welcome to the Frontline Innovation Podcast, the voice of problem solvers. Innovation isn't just about ideals. It's about dismantling the barriers that stand between people and the solutions they actually need. This is where real human problems collide with real-world constraints, where innovators don't chase hype. They study people, break problems apart, and build solutions that actually work. Because the hardest part of innovation isn't creating something new. It's building useful fixes to people's problems and getting it into their hands. Each episode, we go inside that journey with leaders, designers, builders, and problem solvers doing the hard, often invisible work of making innovation real. I'm your host, William Reed. Let's get to work dismantling human problems. On this episode of the Frontline Innovation Podcast, I welcome Dr. Ronke Komolafe to the show. She is a strategic healthcare leader, business executive, and champion for integrated mental, physical, and social health. She is the founder and CEO of Advancing Integrated Health, an organization committed to transforming care delivery through innovation, collaboration, and whole person wellness. She serves as chair of the mental health group for the Forbes Business Council and is editor-in-chief of Integrated Health Magazine, a publication highlighting thought leaders and solutions in whole person care. She is also the organizer of TEDx South Congress and a national speaker on healthcare innovation, leadership, and the future of behavioral health. In this episode, we had an insightful conversation about what innovation looks like when it meets real people, real systems, and real friction in healthcare. So today I'm happy to welcome Dr. Komolafe to the show. The Frontline Innovation Podcast is always looking for interesting people out there in the world who are experiencing innovation every day. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much, William. I appreciate you for having me.
So we always like to kick this podcast off on just starting at the very, very basic human element. When we get up in the morning, we experience so many things in this world. That's a result of innovation. It's the very simple physical things from the bed to the chair to the more high-tech stuff. And we ask our Roku or our Siri, like, what's the weather? It's a lot of things in there. So let's start off by just kind of getting warmed up here about something that you love, hate, or you know what, I'm on a fence on, and whoever designed that thing with experience, I'm gonna give them some feedback. So what do you got on top of your mind?
Patient portals. So a lot of us use patient portals when we go to see our doctors. That's where they put in our medications, appointment reminders, and things like that. And I think we could do a better job using it to engage patients and engage their families.
Yeah, I know I get a lot of feedback on that one because it's too complicated, it's too many buttons, too many drop downs. Anything in particular that's just kind of irk you on those portals?
Yes, when I'm being told I need a code before I can sign up, the complexity makes me forget to sign up, makes the whole process a little bit complicated. I'm just trying to see my doctor, or I'm just trying to read the notes he left in there. So having to go through the front desk to get a code, go back and sign up, being told the code is expired because I waited 3 days or I waited 2 hours, just makes the whole thing complicated. After all, it's my record.
Yeah.
It should be simple. I should be able to log in, use my credentials that they know, and it should be simple, easy, and quick.
Well, that's a very interesting example. Okay, it'll lead us to some other discussions later. And I kind of have an idea what some of the developers are doing when they design those portals. And that kind of gets into, I want to do digital access to all these records, right? Old days, you go into the doctor's office, they pull the file cabinets out, pull the manila folder out, and there's your charts with all your records. So we say, hey, we're going to digitize all this and get all these great
Yeah.
benefits. But every time we innovate and then we move and advance things, we get some other unintended consequences. And one of them these days is we got the bad guys keep trying to steal all the information. It's like, wow. It's like, oh. And I know some of the designers and cybersecurity people are always so concerned about how do we keep this secure. So, we got to send you a secondary code to make sure it's actually Dr. Komolafe instead of William trying to impersonate her. So, but we can get into that more about the behind the scenes of design and why they do the things they do. Uh, so now I'd like to ask you about identity. So in this world, I know people they'll see a problem or they'll experience a problem and they'll like take it to heart and say, you know what, I want to do something about this. So beyond, I want to start my own lemonade stand and make a whole bunch of money. Uh,
Mhm.
so do you have an idea of a perspective on what is this persona? What is it makes up a person who decides they're going to get up tomorrow and potentially start a business or go work for somebody to go solve a problem? Let's talk about the identity of a problem solver.
I think that the most authentic identity of a problem solver is passion and purpose. To be a problem solver, you have to have the calling, you have to have the passion, and you have to have the community to do that. So, the identity of a problem solver, in my perspective, is somebody who has had the experience or the education, who has seen the problem and understand
Mhm.
that they have what it takes within them, either through their skill sets, their talents, or their network to help solve the problem. And they have also identified it as a problem. That's to me is an identity of a problem solver.
Yeah, it's always interesting because you'll be inside of a group of people and they're complaining about something, and maybe it's like wow, everybody looking around, and they'll get it out their system, and they just like no one like raise their hand is like I think I'm gonna do something about that. Normally it's like okay, that's the way the world is, that's the status quo, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we need more people raising their hands and like I'm glad you guys brought that up again for the 100th time. I decided to do something about that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would if the complexities of starting a business does not involve financing. I think the idea of having to start a business and fund it is usually one of the most challenging things that founders experience. Um, so when you go into it, a lot of people think they would go in and they would start making money the next day, or
Yes,
everybody would have the same passion for their product or their services and come rushing in to appreciate and to demand for their product or services. And the reality is, it doesn't happen that way. You have to see a gap in the market in order to solve the gap. Just because you see the gap and you think it's a problem that needs to be solved does not mean the population out there sees that same gap or problem. You have to market it, you have to find your community, and you have to find those who need it. And then you have to be sure that you have something that makes you stand out from your competition.
yeah, all of a sudden, that sounds like a whole lot of work there. Oh man, somebody raised their hand, step forward, someone tackle this problem, then they run into a bus solve all these challenges as we look out there, what it makes to actually make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and at
you
least,
have to
yeah, go
have the
ahead.
heart of an entrepreneur. You know,
Yeah,
once you bite that bug of being an entrepreneur, it's hard to step back. But when you truly have a heart of an entrepreneur, then you're willing to overcome the challenges out there. You know, and you know, and you know what your calling and your purpose is and how it aligns with the problem you're trying to solve. So it helps you either narrow down your focus or broaden your horizon, however, the solution needs to be addressed in order to better achieve the ultimate goal. So entrepreneurs a lot of times understand here's the topic we're trying to solve. And as we go in, we may have to narrow down or expand as long as our focus and our goal is still the same.
I love that. And then also it leads us into almost like a basic question, which is not really basic, it's really complicated. So obviously we talk about innovation as the core of this podcast. And a lot of people have a lot of different takes on it. But I think the common perception for most people is innovation equals technology, right? So they have this narrow definition. And
Yes.
so when you hear the word innovation, what comes to your mind?
Ideas. I, you know, You know my passion about ideas, how ideas make impact, ideas change everything, ideas implement. When we implement ideas, it helps us take things in our community to the next level. So when I hear about innovation, innovation is an idea that involves technology sometimes. In some cases, innovation is just an idea that you use to transform what's already in existence to help and change things for the better. So I think a lot of times people believe innovation is just about technology, but really it's a concept, and it's really how you push it forward. We have innovative ideas, we have innovation technology. There's different ways to see it and use it. But really it's all about transformation. How do we transform what we currently have to make something better? How do we create something to make something better? It's all about transformation.
You know. And I think it gives a lot of people a lot more flexibility when they think about that type of definition you just gave. 'Cause I think some people get stuck and like assume that they have to do it a certain way to solve a problem, when in fact it could be more tech, less tech, or maybe it's the solution sitting there on the shelf, but it costs too much. So you have to be innovative in the financial modeling or the business model, or how do you market it? There's so many different elements here because I always say problem, fix. Okay, I got the fix. Can I get it into people's hands? If you can't
Mhm.
get it into people's hands, then the innovation is just a novelty. So it was a cool idea, but it has to be accessible and usable. People need to go grab it and say it actually worked.
I absolutely agree with you. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
one of the things that we have a nice, cool definition of innovation, and we found somebody who's a problem solver out there. I'd like to step back now and just get into this whole idea of understanding a problem enough to even consider, like, should you even go even further, or even think, is it probably even solvable, right? I think a lot of people will be, at the bar or in a restaurant hanging out. It's like all you got to do to fix the problem X is to do ABC. And
Yes.
you listeners like, yeah, I think it's more complicated than that. So let's expand the conversation now. Talk about any problem that someone's out there, they're looking at it. But how do you look at it? How do you take this problem apart? How do you analyze it to figure out, what is this thing?
Thank you for asking that
Mhm.
question. That's a question I'm very passionate about. My expertise is about integrating mental, physical, and social health. So, a lot of times when I approach problems, I always look at what's the social impacts, the mental health impact, and the physical health impacts, not necessarily medical health impact. So, in terms of innovation, and if we go back to the example I gave before, the social health impact, if we start with that, is socially we are overwhelmed with technology, we're overwhelmed with distractions, and our time management skills right now is top notch for a lot of people, but at the same time it's filled with a lot of distractions. So when I'm trying to say go set up my patient portal, for example, instead of having to go to an MA, a medical assistant at my doctor's office where I have to stay on the phone, call for 15 minutes before I can get through to them to get the code, and then go back and hopefully not get distracted
Yes,
with
yes.
the coding.
Yeah.
Um, there's a chance I'm not going to finish that process because I'm distracted and I have other things to do. But when it's set up where the code is texted to me for verification or emailed to me, just like banks do or other people do, then I can easily complete it. So I feel there should be other forms of verification as opposed to that old process. So
Yes.
that's a mental health process, a social process. Put into consideration the social impact of the solution you're trying to put in place. In this case, it's distraction, technology, life, work. A lot of things would distract people from setting that up or from even following through with that request. Now, the mental aspect of it is if this is something that really is important for the person to do and they keep forgetting, now you're creating an environment for them where they're constantly worried about, oh, I have to do this. I keep getting distracted. It's been 4 days since my
Mm.
doctor's appointment and I haven't logged into my patient portal. That constant worry and anxiety is something you can remediate for them by making a code easily available to them or an easier way for them to verify themselves. They should verify themselves. I 100% agree that's something that should be done. And the physical health aspect of it is what type of tension is this creating for them? When people are overwhelmed, when people are worried, when people are distracted constantly, it does have an impact on their personality, on their relationships, on their brain, on their sleep. So a code, a simple code that an MA has to give somebody to sign up for their patient portal has now created a lot of stress that could be easily elevated if that technology was created with that perspective in mind. So I approach a lot of situations, a lot of problem and issues with what's the social aspect, what's the mental health aspect, not
Yeah.
mental diagnosis, but mental aspect, and what's the physical health implication of this.
And that's really interesting there because you start to think about it because the original goal of the say the doctor's office was to help treat patients and help them get better. And if the way the doctor's office has been designed, and when these technology system creates this friction and create more workload mentally on the person, all of a sudden they may get discouraged, not show up, not go as often. All of a sudden you have this side effect, and you're like, hold up, why aren't they coming in and see it? You got great doctors, great nurses, and you find it's totally something unrelated. It's something this side thing where it's like, I'm just having trouble interfacing with to even see you, or I'm holding on line too long, or I get there and I'm sitting in the waiting room for too long, and a little bit longer they get to the actual benefit of seeing the doc and maybe helping them
Yeah.
out with their health. So let's talk about this. I mean, everybody who runs a business, right? They have all these things they have to consider. Are there other things in the way we run our business which is discouraging or making it harder for our customers to get the benefit?
Oh yes, I personally experienced this. I had a this person was a client and also my doctor. Um, the company was my client, and then the doctor was also one of my doctors for my eyes. And I remember they have it across the lobby. Schedule your appointments online. Use your patient portal. So excited! I don't have to call you guys. Great! I don't have to stay on the phone for 20 minutes trying to schedule an appointment. Great! So I go in and schedule my appointment on patient portal. I get all the necessary text messages and everything reminding you of the appointment, and then I show up, and they could not find me in the system that I
Oh,
had an appointment set up. And I'm like, no, I did set up an appointment. Here's the process, and your lobby says you should do it. They're like, oh, we were trying it out. The person who understands the patient portal is no longer here. So they go into my patient portal and they confirmed I set up the appointment. Okay, that's great. We'll do better next time. They saw me that day. Well, I took their words for it. Next time I had an appointment, I went ahead and set it up in the patient portal again, had everything verified, only for me to show up in this time around again. I
oh
was not
wow.
on schedule. So I'm like, well, we had this happen the last time. You guys, they're like, well, we're too booked today. We can't see you. You need to go through the right process. I'm like, it's right there. You can
Yeah.
use the patient portal. So for me, it was a little bit discouraging that they had not refined their process enough because
Yeah.
I had to, leave work, drive there, reschedule my entire life for that appointment. But I also understand they have a process of seeing patients, and there were other people they've also confirmed. So while I was okay to reschedule and come back, I no longer felt comfortable to use my patient portal. In fact, I didn't trust what was in the patient portal. If they don't really check it. I did go in and talk to them a
Yeah.
few times. Nobody ever responded. It was just a product that was there that they no longer used. And that was one issue. The second issue I have with patient portal
Yeah.
is almost every doctor wants you to have one. So now, hopefully everybody just has one primary care doctor. But if you are an average individual has two doctors, an allergist, a regular doctor, an eye doctor, a regular doctor, a dentist, a primary care. We at least have two
Yeah.
providers. So now you constantly have to remember two passwords and two user IDs if they're not set up in a way where you can use the same. Some want
Yeah.
your email, some want your ID. We do need a centralized world where they're combined. And I know there's a lot of technology out there that combines it. It should be free. It should be free. Why do I have to give you my information and then pay for me to access my information? So I think there's a lot of ways to address this.
And that's really getting into a deeper systemic elements here because there's so many friction points for an experience of I'm gonna help you get better, or I'm gonna help feed you or educate you or protect you. And then people are interfacing with these systems every single day and they get frustrated. It's like, what's all this extra stuff, right? I can't even get to the main point. Now, the
Yeah.
people behind building this said, hey, we're going to add more technology. We're going to improve the process. It's going to be faster, quicker. Hey, we can digitally have your records in your system. We'll know everything about you. But like you probably experienced, you get there, they act like they never heard about you. Like, whoa, I thought this back end improvements you guys were doing and you advertised are going to help with the experience. And it
Mhm.
turns out could be almost in the exact same spot we were like 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's like, what's going on here? And I think that's what people are very frustrated with, that maybe the people who are running these companies don't really understand the problem fully. They say we can kind of get there, but there's so much friction point. It's like, it's your responsibility to take on this complexity and make it simpler. So let's talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a solution to that. When you have a product, listen to what your users are saying and don't curate the users based on asking your friends. As a woman, I can say women empowerment out there, we women love to support each other, we give very good feedback, but I also know sometimes we always give feedback to make us feel good, right? Not just women's, but family members do that, friends do that, co-workers do that. If you're starting or developing a product, look for the right people who will truly give you the right feedback, the true feedback, the honest feedback. And sometimes it hurts to hear it, especially when you've spent months and
Yeah,
days and you tested it and you've used industry standards. And then
yes.
somebody comes in within 2 minutes and tell you, this is not going to work. It
It
hurts.
doesn't work. Yeah,
It
yes.
hurts, but it also helps for improvement and for go to market strategies and improving market shares. It helps in a lot of ways. One of the ways I have done this is
Yeah,
I would ask for feedback and then have it stay and not
yeah,
check it, or have my team discuss it with me until I'm ready, because I don't want to shut it down. So when I'm ready, I would say, okay, I'm ready. Let's talk about it. Hope they've reviewed it and they have their feedback for me, or we can review it together. Another way I do this is whatever feedback I get, I would say no, 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 no,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
But I do know I will go back to that feedback and evaluate it. And I will say about 90% of the time I end up taking that feedback. But right there on the spot, my my desire to say no, and the reason I say no is so that I don't overpromise or
yeah,
overextend myself in that instant without having all the strategic knowledge and information necessary to support my decision of yes. So making sure that I can go back and ask the right people, what do you really think about this? So usually my no is oftentimes not a firm no. It's a no of no, 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 no,
yeah,
but knowing, oh, we are going to go back and dissect this. So I think connecting with, you know, users and then evaluating whatever surveys you do are great. Always do surveys on social media. Text message surveys work. Would you use your own product? If the answer is no, then there's an issue. Would you go through your own process? If the answer is no, then I think you have the answer to your problems. So I think
yeah,
also for developers, another feedback,
yeah,
having worked in a tech company, is a lot of times things seem simpler and easier for
yeah,
them after they've developed it. But the end user experience team, who are so used to that environment, also give feedback. So collectively, those are good feedback. But what does it look like
yeah.
when an actual client give the feedback without, you know, it going through the user experience team where it actually goes to everybody?
I know a lot of people who love and say, you know what, I'm gonna go build me a new company. What currently is there isn't that great. I'm gonna go do it better. Now, sometimes when they jump in, they kind of understand the user problem very well, but they don't understand the business model side of it, and especially input cost. So it might turn out that the product that's front ending the maybe the doctor's office has all the features you want to make the client experience very good. But it turns out there's some integration cost and there's some extra features costs, some extra module costs, and extra training costs. And they start to add these things up and they're looking at it, it's like, oh wow. So I heard what the customer said. I know what the patient wants.
Mhm.
Maybe the current state is actually optimized for the cost structure today. Oh my God. It's not a technical issue. It's not a know-how issue. It's like, I don't think I can actually afford to actually bring the solution up to spec. So let's talk about this when the constraints are real, because not like, hey, we know what's wrong. It's like, well, I can give you 20 minutes to talk to a patient. It just means I'm going to have to see a lot less patients, which means we're going to take in a lot less money, which means we may not be able to stay in business. So let's talk about like the reality of those constraints where we're going to give you half decent service. If you want better service, we have to increase the cost. And then the customers might say, well, we can't afford that. So let's talk about these financial pressures.
Using healthcare is quite an interesting example.
Yeah,
A lot of people believe healthcare should be free, um, but there's no evidence the free healthcare is better, and there's no evidence the paid healthcare is less or better. It all depends on your experience and what you're paying for, and the environment and the constraints. But I think when it really comes down to healthcare, we really need to look at what is the best model, and we don't really have a best systemic model that works. I think having Medicare is great, having Medicaid is great, and having commercial is great. Private insurance is great, and then being able to pay by cash is great. We have four different options in this country that helps us. Creating a product that aligns with all of it works, but there's still challenges when you're developing your business. You have to attract people in, and there's administrative burdens supported with regulatory requirements. And I do understand all the sides with my regulatory background that the regulatory requirement is needed, the administrative side is needed, and making healthcare cheap is needed. I think ultimately, maybe we find a subsidiary system to help supplement the cost of healthcare where doctors are not fully impacted and patients are not fully impacted. Holding doctors accountable through value based payment and cost sharing or sharing of profits is good. Is that the best option? Some people think it is. Some people think it's not. We can. That's another big uh,
yeah,
area to dissect it. But from a patient perspective, what do our patients really want? And I'm gonna go
yeah,
into this issue from my own perspective. When we talk about what do our patients want,
yeah,
a lot of people say patients want to understand what their doctors are saying, make access easy, get the care
yeah,
they need, which
yeah,
is absolutely true. But have we ever asked them what they want? People will say, yes, we do patient surveys. From my experience working in a health plan provider
yeah,
office, consulting, developing healthcare technology products, patients never give you surveys. They never complete surveys unless they have an extremely good experience or an extremely bad experience. So when a doctor has, let's say, 2,500 patients in his panel or
yeah,
20,000
yeah,
patients in his organization, and only 10 people complete that survey, we're not really getting the true perspective of the patients. So maybe we need to start doing what Walmart does. As people are checking
yeah,
in,
yeah,
have them complete a survey of their last visit,
yeah,
or have them complete a survey of what happened if they're checking out. Have them complete a survey through text messages, remind them so we can truly capture their experience. And that can really help us understand how we change in terms of the financial model, in terms of the financial restraint, because maybe we're not doing things right. And when it comes to regulatory requirements, I know a lot of our regulatory agencies from the federal, state, and local
yeah,
levels always provide technical assistance, process development for new processes, which I believe is really, really helpful. I think providers' voices needs to be heard more, but how can
yeah,
they be heard when they're seeing patients? They don't see patients, they don't get paid. They don't get paid, they
yeah,
can pay their nurses and their
yeah,
MAs. So I think helping people understand the burden on providers' health. They are the revenue generator and they're the lifesavers. those two burdens, I think it's too much for a business owner to carry if you own your own practice.
It also leads that you understand the complexity of like healthcare in general. That's a pretty big, broad scope. So in a lot of cases, you got to figure out how do you want to slice this down? How do you want to scope a potential fix that you might want to bring to market? So it's maybe we just want to get you healthier. Maybe it's nutrition. Maybe it's early health. Maybe it's elderly care. So now we got to zoom in something realistic to say, I'm gonna tackle this very, very specific thing. Now I could run into the fact that maybe it's not on the provider side. Maybe if we say, hey, it's not a regulatory problem, it's not a cost issue, can we find it across all the demographics, the health outcomes are still bad. So maybe it's something we have to do from an educational standpoint on the customer side. And then maybe the customer got the feedback that said, Dr. Kamalafe, I know you told me what I need to be eating, but it's not as good as that greasy food. I'm sorry. So unless you can innovate to the point where this salad tastes as good as the greasy burger, I'm going to keep eating this greasy burger and I might not exercise as much. And maybe it's not the system. Maybe it's the barrier for the user to actually get over is too high. So how do you think about, we got to start thinking even differently about like what specifically are we trying to attack here? And given choices, do we need to make the kids' medicine taste as good as a piece of candy so they'll take it every day? Or do we keep trying to convince the kid to take the medicine? So what are your thoughts there?
I think when it comes to let's solve a much narrower problem, and I'll stay around the patient portal. If that's okay.
Okay.
I think solving the problem again comes back to the user experience, and I'm gonna use Apple, Apple phone, iPhones as a good example. We, the loyal Apple users, love Apple
Yeah.
because of its simplicity, right? Because of its simplicity, it is simple, it is simple, it is simple. In terms of features, they have good features, but we see how quickly Android comes up with their features, and we see that Apple comes up with their features much more slower, but with better quality, at least from my experience. So when it comes down to, and I think they do that because they do understand their users, what their users want. And it helps them buy the loyalty of their users or get the loyalty of their users. So I think from a technology perspective, how do we use technology to help healthcare, patient portal use? And the use of patient portals centers around patient engagement. How do we bring our patients back into the clinic timely to help them using portal technology? I think it comes down to user experience. What do your users want to see in the patient portal? Why do I even have to go log into something online when I should be able to view it on my phone as an app? And why is my patient portal not connected to other patient portals? So I think I, as a user, would want my patient portal to be freely connected to all other patient portals without me getting charged for it and without me having to understand the complexities in the front end, right? Some way you can link your bank accounts to different financial
Yeah.
systems easily just through linkage. We should be able to do that. But at the same time, how do I ensure that my information is not shared by the wrong or right
Yeah.
person? So I think from a patient perspective, give us the surveys, give us the ability to provide feedback seamlessly. And from the provider side, capture this and give it to the tech companies. And from the tech companies, reach out to patients and see, to some extent, a lot of times they don't have the patient information,
Yeah.
but have a patient forum, openly have a patient forum and bring patients together regardless of what part of the country they are, group them by specialties and get this feedback. Not just bringing one patient who had a bad experience and capturing their feedback, but bring together a forum. We have we call it user UGM meetings, which is a meeting that a lot of tech companies have, especially the big ones. It's a user group meeting conference where a lot of provider organization, health plans, and things like that who use that technology attend to learn about new products. Let's have the patient one. Have one, even if it's like a meetup, and see what you can capture realistically, verbally. What you capture when you have a face to face meeting with someone is different from what you capture when you send a survey, and what you capture when you send a survey that is all yes or no, agree, disagree is different from what you would capture when it's free text. I think they need to do all of it, and think it should be transparently provided to the providers who use them. That would be what I would recommend because I think the future of healthcare is technology, and
Yeah.
some aspect of technology are not moving fast enough. And I'm not talking about technology from a perspective of telehealth. Telehealth is
Yeah.
here to stay. I think now we are
Yeah.
over telehealth. We're still in the health information exchange era where we should be able to see everybody's information, providers do, centrally if they register into the HIE or consent to it.
Yeah.
I think that's a very great thing. But what about the patient? Let the patient see what's going on with their own care without having to go through a lot of stress. Maybe,
Yeah.
just maybe,
Yeah.
it will help improve care better and engagement.
Now, one of the challenges when people build solutions, they do a very, very good job of the features and the specs. So it technically does exactly everything you say, but the human problem itself is larger than that. So in this case, you did a couple of slices, but it might be 1,000 slices when we do something as broad as healthcare. So
Yes.
the portal could check the box, say it functions well. And by the way, it's not the tech that was the problem. It was a process on the back end with the organizational structure, with the management and how they're doing the research in the background, which is causing some of the problems with some of the integration on the tech side falling through. So now we're getting into this human element on the org side, which is unrelated to the tech, but tech can just accelerate it. And then if somebody may say, you know what, the problem I actually heard was about, obesity. It wasn't necessarily the other issues. So they say, how do I decide? How do I actually go about it? And then and they find out it's some of it's on the user side, some's on the tech side, some on the business side. They can get overwhelmed and say, you know what? This is why I didn't raise my hand in the first place when somebody said there was a problem. And they can say the status quo could, in fact, some people may think might be the best we can offer currently. And the whole idea of innovation is perhaps not. Maybe we need to dig even further and say what is really, really the problem, right? So when you come out and get born into this world, like what do you eat? How do you clothe yourself? How do you have the great mental health? There's just so much in there. So somebody say, I got to just pick something smaller, something very, very specific. I'm gonna open a gym, right? A regional gym, network of gyms. And if you sign up as a member, you're gonna be healthy because of the way we laid this out. So we get very more specific. Then your portion of the world, you say, I can do a good job with that. And of course, you got to make sure it's what you call affordable, encourage people to come back and say, you know what, it's just not that they don't want to go work out. It's my responsibility to be innovative in the experience to say, we're going to build a community and they're happy to come work out and happy to eat healthy. And we're going to attack it a different way. So let's talk about thinking differently. I think right now, most people are looking at more things that go by, and we got more apps, we got more tech, we got AI enabled everything, and we can end up in the exact same spot and say the human condition is still not getting any better, right? It's faster, quicker, it looks cooler, the products, but do the products allow you to have more time with your family or have the chance to breathe and have dignity? And I think that's what we're struggling now with all this promise of new capabilities over the last 50, 60, 70 years. And then looking at the human conditions like, well, darn, I would just, what is all this stuff for?
I mean, in my perspective, two things matter: the voice of the users, capture it and use it. Number two, have a strategic plan of what your product looks like, at least on an annual basis. And I say annual because healthcare
Yeah,
changes too fast for us to say 10 years from now, this is what it
yeah,
would look like.
yeah,
I think an annual strategic plan, or at least 2 years of a product development plan, capturing patient feedback is the way to go in this situation. In terms of innovation and what to focus on, Look at Toyota Corolla. Toyota Corolla of 25 years ago is not what it looks like today, right? But
Yeah.
what does Toyota do? Every year they release a new product, improving from the last year. And sometimes they just release pretty much the same one for like a year or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think in healthcare we need to understand that, and I think to some extent we do. But I think what's missing again is having a community of patient users. So if I have to narrow down one solution, it would be build a community of end users, patients specifically, to constantly give you feedback about their user experience for patient portal that you can add into your strategic product development to help improve the experience with providers and with the product.
Okay, so let's say we've this
I have,
person has, yeah, they raised their hand, they dug in, they started a business, they got the capital, the product looks pretty good. They went and built this thing, and it looks good, it functions, and it's a good affordable price. And then you go into the meeting with the CFO and say, Dr. Komolafe, our sales are flat. What's going on here? Nobody knows about us. Sales teams are pointing at marketing, marketing pointing at the product team, and you're looking at like this thing does the job, and it's very cost competitive. So talk about this. There's a solution. I don't know why you guys are complaining. Just go down to the store and order it, and it will do what it does. But you guys telling me you never heard about it.
thank you for bringing that up. In a situation like that, the solution I would really bring to the table is what's your go to market strategy? Go to market strategy is different from marketing. Marketing is the end groundwork of what you're doing to show people the product. Go to market strategies between marketing and sales and product development. This is where you're telling the product people that's a great product, but based on market trends that is coming in a year or two, that's going to be obsolete by the time it gets to the market. Add this or this or this to it. So go to market strategies tells you your trends. It tells you what the market looks like from your user experience. You may be marketing to primary care providers, but the people who really need it might be the, cardiologist. A doctor is not just a doctor. Most doctors have expertise. So really looking at the direction the market is going, understanding the trends, understanding what the economic development and dollars or funds are going in there, and then understanding the user experience and understanding the market segment. How you would market to rural America is different from how you market to a typical urban area or people in downtown. How you would market to people who live in New York is different from how you market to people who live in Texas. So understanding the geographical area that you're going to market. So, one marketing strategy does not bring success unless you have a truly agnostic product that you think would work. But in my opinion, you always have to refine it. If you go to somewhere like in New York and you're talking about, catching the train,
Yeah,
people can relate to that.
yeah,
If you come to somewhere like Texas and you talk about catching the train, some people might relate to that in a very comfortable, chill way. Right? We take
yes,
trains because we're going to a concert. We take trains because, okay, I don't want to drive and avoid traffic, but it's not too bad. On the way, I can take an access road, I can do this and do that. In New York, sometimes people just don't have the flexibility but to take a train. So the way you would market is different to those two demographics. So go to market strategies is what I would recommend. It's missing in that scenario. Bring the experts in. Don't use your internal team for your go-to-market strategies unless they have that experience. Again, it's different from marketing. Go-to-market strategies helps you look at the persona of the people you're focusing on. They help you look at the culture. They help you look at the language they use, right? In some places you go, they talk about, I want pop, I want soda. Well, in some
yes,
places, everything is about Coke or Pepsi,
yes,
right?
yes.
So truly diving deep into the persona, the personality of the market, the people you're marketing to, how they speak, how they talk, what's the culture, what's the community like, will resolve that problem.
Now you're feeling pretty good. So they took your advice. They did a 6 month turnaround, and the numbers are spiking. These things are going off the shelf, whatever this product service is. People are buying it. And then a year later, something's a little off here. The numbers look good. People are buying it, but you went and raised your hand to solve a very particular problem. So, and you designed a very specific fix. And you looking later, it's like, I don't think people are actually using this darn thing. They're buying it, but it's ending up in the drawer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, like, it's not like Americans have ever bought stuff and had it sitting on the shelf or in the closet. It's like, wow, that thing could be helping you. And if you actually used it, it would, in fact. Now, unfortunately, it's possible to sell a lot of stuff that's unhealthy for us, right? You could get paid for sickness in America, right? Easily, right? Even though the tagline is like, we're going to make everybody healthy. So think about this thing as you, as the person who wanted to solve this problem, built something, spent all the time to build a company around it, got your go-to-marketing strategy right, successfully sold the thing to the person who actually needs this thing, and he looking back and finding out they don't actually use the darn thing. So some people may say, hey, it could be the packaging, maybe it's the instructions, maybe it's too hard to use, whatever it is. You're incentivized to say, hey, people keep buying it, so are we okay? But you still get the persona of the problem solving, like something's still off here. Talk about that feeling like, ah, something's missing.
Thank you for asking that question. That's a question that highly, highly aligns with patient portals. Provided you buy it, they never use it.
Yeah.
I actually had a client who told me, if my EHR would just develop this, and they described everything. And I'm like, that's a patient portal. And they're like, oh, is that what it's called? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, by the way, do you realize you have a license for 20,000? And they're like, what? We do? I'm like, yeah, it's in your EHR contract. And you've been paying for it for 3 years. And they're like, oh, we're not using it? How do we use it?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times people sometimes buy products because it's an add on or because it's so cheap. The discount is so good that you can pass on it. But not using it is an issue. There are different ways to look at this. Again, by the time they got it, has the trend kind of moved away, right? So in that case, the product, the company should be looking for ways to continuously elevate their product so it doesn't become obsolete. Number two, again, users. Why are the users not using it? You may get 10 different reasons from 10 different people. So the more users you connect with, the better. Another reason could be economic reasons. The trends is beginning to change. So people are not seeing value in the product, but the contract says it's for 10 years. If they cancel, it's more expensive. So there's a lot of ways I would look at this as somebody who does go to market strategies is what are we seeing? Right? Honestly, you can never go wrong with surveys. It tells you the truth. But I also love to do root cause analysis using Six Sigma, which is asking the whys. Why are we not using this product? Why are people not using this product? We don't know. Why don't we know? Because we don't engage to ask. Why don't we ask? Because we don't have someone to do it. Why don't we have someone to do it? Because we don't have the money. Why don't we have the money? Because it wasn't put in the strategic plan. Why wasn't it put in the strategic plan? Because we don't have oversight over this issue. So the real reason why we're having this problem now is oversight, not about money, not about trends, not about person. It wasn't put in the strategic plan as part of an oversight, so it wasn't allocated funds. So finding the root cause helps us be able to address this, asking the whys. A lot of times when you start asking the why, by the time you get to your third or fourth why, you have the answer. You have the true root cause answer if you're using Six Sigma processes. So when I do this type of work, a lot of times I'm like, hey, executive team, thank you for bringing
Yeah.
me in and telling me what's going on, but I need to talk to the people
Yeah.
who are doing the work. And, I want to talk to a manager, I want to talk to a director, I also want to talk to the mid level person and the entry level person. Let me ask the questions and, ask it in a safe way so they can really express the opinion. But using the whys, the six whys or the three whys are the best way to find the root cause and then address it from there proactively.
Yeah, 'cause I said, man, somebody spent all this effort, man. It's like all of a sudden got it into your hands, you got it, and like, man, I'm not going to use it. Like, no, let's find out why. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And even, so we're looking at this from the product side. If you go back and look at this from the user side, why did you buy this product and not use it? Because we didn't know about it? Why didn't we know about it? Because the tech team didn't tell us? Why didn't the tech team tell us? Because they didn't know they were supposed to? That's what usually happens. Why didn't they know they were supposed to? Nobody told them. Why didn't anybody tell them? Um, we don't know.
I said
So
because you. Where's the leadership here?
communication,
Yes,
exactly. So the
yeah,
issue now is not that they're not using it. The issue is there is a breakdown in communication between leadership or the person who signed up on it and the people who are overseeing the technology. So what I would say is there's a breakdown between the leadership in the tech on the tech team and the leadership with the provider team or the user team that is actually using the product. So now we have a solution. Make them talk to each other.
we're going to innovate. We're going to have people sit in a room and actually talk. Oh man,
Yeah,
yes,
and really talk in a
yeah,
way where the answers are. Because I think a
yeah,
lot of times when it comes to this type of things, we have people pointing fingers. And I once had a mentor who told me the best way to get people to get along is bring food. Bring food.
yeah,
Try to get them, take them to, happy hour. They don't have to drink if it's a company event, but bring that calmness and that let your shoulder down. This is happy
yeah,
hour. We're no longer at work. And then bring the topic up. Or have food brought into a meeting, lunchtime, where people are more relaxed, people are distracted while they're eating, so their emotion and tension is down, and people can really speak their truth. But always bringing in that semi distraction with food always
yeah.
helps. And it's never gone wrong, in my opinion, every time I've used it.
I love it. So we start to wrap up here. Is there anything that we haven't covered around this entire conversation around innovation and the problem solver and trying to fix something out there out in the world and getting these fixes in people's hands?
Yes, I think when you're handling a solution, bring in the right people. You either home grow them and be sure they can do it, or bring in the right people to help you. And when I talk about the right people, bring in somebody who is willing to do the work, who has the experience or is currently building the experience. Don't just reassign it to somebody who already has something else they're doing, which is something we see a lot. With hey, I'm just gonna add
Yeah,
this project to you. If it's a project that will take that needs a position or will be a forever role, it should not be an add-on to somebody else's role
yeah,
because something is going to fall, something's gonna drop. So I always recommend if there's no budget for it, bring a consultant to do a minimal work until you can create a budget or make sure you completely if you're having somebody in-house make sure you take away something and give them that new thing so they can truly focus but make provision for an expert to help you do this.
hey, I really appreciate your time there. It's been a very interesting conversation diving into this, especially around healthcare. It's such an important topic, and we can't spend enough time on this to really improve the outcomes for some of the millions of people here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, William. I really appreciate you and for putting this podcast together. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
That has been another episode of the Frontline Innovation Podcast. Thank you for your time. Innovation doesn't end with a great idea or a product on the shelf. It continues through the realization that someone's problem was fixed after they used the solution. If this episode helped you see a problem more clearly or think differently about how solutions reach the front lines, share it with someone who's doing that work alongside you. And if you're building, designing, selling, or supporting solutions meant to last, subscribe to the Frontline Innovation Podcast, the voice of problem solvers. Because progress isn't driven by ideals alone. It's built by those willing to dismantle problems and do the work that follows. Until next time, stay on the front line and go dismantle a human problem.